This is the part 3 of the interface basics for ArcGIS 10. In this video I'm going to cover some of the selections menu. We'll look at some the magnifier and viewer windows and overview windows. Come back to the tools menu bar, look a little bit into the measure device, measuring tool, and the find, as well as take a look at table of contents, listing our layers in different ways, selectability basically, and exporting some data out. And then finally catalog, being able to copy and rename our feature classes, create a layer file and explain what that is. And lastly, we'll do the attribute table options and be able to add a field. So that's what we're going to cover in this section. So let's get started. The first thing I want to take a look at is some of these windows. Let's concentrate on the windows first: magnify and viewer and overlay. And those are under the window menu up here. And you click on that, and there are 3 up here that are separated out. These are overview, magnifier, and viewer. What we'll start with is this magnifier window, which I use a lot, and it pops open a magnifier that you can grab the title bar on and move around your map and of your data set, your data view, and you can adjust the amount of magnification through a drop down menu here. And of course you can resize the magnifier if you'd like. And there are options over on this right hand side of the magnifier where you can have it update while dragging and change certain properties and things like that. So you can take a look at the magnifier window and see how you like it. The other window I want to look at, the other 2, are called viewer and overview. So let's try the overview. Pop up in the overview, and what we have is basically what you would expect. You get a view onto your data set, and this shows an overview of all your data and the area that you're currently zoomed into on the view. So let's zoom in a little bit to give us something to show. So let's zoom in maybe to the center part of the state. You notice over here in our overview window we have a box outlining where we are zoomed into. And this window allows you to grab that box and move anywhere around your data set to update the view that you want. So if you want to maintain your scale, you don't want to do a lot of scrolling up and down, using the mouse to pan around, you can open the overview window, grab this box showing your current view extent, and just drag it wherever it is that you want to update your view with. It's a nice handy tool, especially if you're checking data sets and looking for problems. And the last window I want to look at is a thing called viewer, and we'll open that one. And here's the viewer window. Looks very similar to the magnifier. The difference is that this acts as if it's an entirely separate window to your view window. You can grab your pan tool right here, and you can pan this window independent of your view. So you can actually look at 2 different locations entirely. You can zoom into in the viewer. So they don't have to be the same scales. We're not just panning around. We have an entirely different view onto our data set. And of course you can adjust the scale just like on the others. And there are options over here as to whether you want to flash your location, which isn't going to show up any on here. So let me just pull this off a little bit, and we'll zoom out to the full extent. And if we use that option to flash our location, we should see our location flash down here. And you can see this line being drawn showing our center and where it shows up on our map. There's other things under there, under that options menu over on the right hand side of your viewer. You can pan the map. That would be to the viewer location. That would be changing this area to match that one. So if we went to this, it would pan over. It's just panning, so it's not changing the scale. If we wanted to, we could zoom to the viewer location like that, and then we'd end up seeing the same thing. Let me go back over here and click here. And the other option here is if we zoom in over to Buffalo area, we can also do the reverse and zoom the viewer to the map location. So we end up having two views on our data set that we can link up when we want them to be linked, or we can leave them disconnected and simply look at different extents of our data set. Alright, that's the Windows menu. To demonstrate the selection menu options, I'm going to zoom to my data set. I'm going to bring in another data layer, and to do that I'm going to come over to my catalog window over here. I'm going to come down to my detailed roads. I'm going to grab the detailed roads and drag it over into my view. I could also put it into my table of contents myself and position it wherever I wanted to over here, or just drag it into the view area. Then the system will automatically position it for me. And here's a detailed road layer for New York State. And the reason I'm adding this is because I want to make some selections from this layer. And this is something you often do with a data set. Let's zoom in a little bit. Grab the zoom tool up here, and let's just zoom into this center part of the state here. Very often you might have very detailed, very extensive data sets, and you will want to either select them out either by a specific location or by type of feature class, things like that, to essentially minimize the amount of data that you're working with, to only include those features that you really need. And so we have a detailed road network here, and if we right click on the layer name and go to Open Attribute Table, we'll see the attributes down below for detailed roads, and one of them is this ACC code used by the Census Bureau. So let's go up and actually map our roads. Let's close this. We're going to go up and we're going to change the symbology on the detailed roads layer, and we're going to do that by right clicking on the layer name and going to Properties, and inside Properties, under the show options here, we can say by categories, and we have unique value option, and we can just specify display these, click here for our drop down list by the ACC number. And then down below here we say add all values. That's what causes it to read the attribute table. Grab all the possibilities from that field and create us a list. There's 1 through 6, and they're randomly assigning colors. So we'll uncheck this and say OK. And so now we have the roads displayed by their classification. And what we're going to do is use some options under the selection menu up here to make selections. So if you click on the selection menu, you'll see that we do have a couple options at the very top: select by attributes and select by location. We'll start first with the attribute option. So if we select by attributes, we get this dialog. I'll move it to the center a little bit. And the first thing in this dialog we want to do is identify the layer that we're going to select features from. And so we're going to select features from the detailed roads. And then we have a method here, and we have a drop down list for the methods, and these are basically create a new selection, which means it starts from all the features in the feature class. We add to a current selection, so if we have a current selection of 10 of the features or whatever, we're going to be adding to that based on our expression. We can also remove from a current selected set, and we can also select from the current selection set. So those 4 options allow you to manipulate your selection in any possible way. So let's create a new selection, which means we're going to start with all the features in our data set, and we want to base it on the ACC field, and in here is a listing of our fields, and in here is the ACC. So if we double click on that, it will put it down here in our expression, and our expression says it will select from detailed roads where ACC, and then the next question we have is whether we want to use an expression greater than, less than, equal to, and things like that. So we'll use the expression, the operator equal, just single click that, puts it in place. And then to find out what our options are, well, we could look over here and we see it's 1 and 2. We want to select roads that are classified as 1 and 2 in the ACC field. If you're unsure what your options are in that field, if you come back up to the field area and then just left click on it, and if it's highlighted like this, you can then come down to where it says get unique values, click on that, and the system will build a unique value list. Again, going out to the attribute table and running down through that field, grabbing all possibilities. And then we'll get a listing here 1 to 6. And you notice they are in a single quote, meaning that they're not really used as numbers, they really are strings. You need to put single quotes around a string. So we want 1. So this expression down here as it stands right now would select all roads where the ACC value equals 1. But we'd like to also have 2. So what we're going to do say is ACC equals 1 or, and we'll use the or operator here, click on that, and then we come back up here and we put another ACC in, double click there, or ACC equals, and then we come over here to collect the value 2 and we click on that twice. So we now have our expression here that we're going to select from the detailed roads where ACC equals 1 or ACC equals 2. And then we go down and then we can either apply that, in which case if we hit apply, the the dialog will stay up after the selection's made. And if the selection doesn't look right, you haven't gotten what you thought you would get, then you can modify your selection here, your expression, and run it again. If it is what you think you wanted, then you simply hit OK. It will close the dialog. So that's really the difference between OK and apply. Apply will leave that dialog open so that you can make modifications if you didn't get exactly what you want. So let's look at our data set and what we did get. So let's click out, and now we have that very detailed road or street network here for this New York State, and then our selected set will be shown in the cyan color right there, very bright. Those are the roads that are classified as 1 or 2 in the ACC field. So now that we've got this selection, one of the things you might want to do is save it out, and that's often the thing. You make selections based on location, you make selections based on attributes, and you reduce your data set, you create a new one. And the easiest way to do that is to come right down to the layer menu, come down to the layer, right click to get its context menu, and if you come down to where it says data, then you notice that we have another submenu where we can actually export our data. So we're going to click on export here. It pops up this dialog. Because it knows there is a selected set in play, we've selected a number of features, it defaults to selected features. If you want to override at any time, you can save all the features still, selected features, or you can only grab the features that are currently in the view. You also have an option here of whether you save them in the layer's original coordinate system, or you can save it in the data frame coordinate system. And then finally down at the bottom we have to identify an output location. And if you click here, this is a place where some people get a little confused. I'm going to move up here a little bit, and then I'm going to change this. If you're dealing with shapefiles, very often you'll end up with shapefile as the default here. And if that's the case, then when you move into, say, our directory where we know our data, our default geodatabase resides, you notice we don't see it here. If we come over to the catalog over here, we see that, it's right here. New York State GDB is our default file geodatabase. And it's in the same folder as zip codes, streets, soils. It should be in here and it's not shown. And that's because it has defaulted to a shapefile. And of course, shapefiles cannot go inside a geodatabase, so it's not showing you that. What you want to do is make sure that you come down here and select what type of feature class you want to save it in, whether it's a shapefile or you want to save it as a file or personal geodatabase feature class. So you say feature class, and then you notice that we have the geodatabase showing. We then can go into it and we can give it a new name. And we can call this new name, we can call it Major Roads. And then say save. It's not doing the save yet, it simply saves that output workspace information right here. So it's going to go into our default geodatabase and call it Major Roads. And then we just hit the OK button, and this export data will export our selected set and give us the option to add it to our map. We just say yes there. And then what I'm going to do is come over here and turn the detailed off as soon as it stops drawing. And notice our selected set disappears because it's linked up with the layer. And if we click on Major Roads, they are there. Let's change the color by right-clicking on the symbol. Let's make it a little brighter. And let's bring it up and make it a little wider. There. So there are my major roads in the state. And I was able to create those by going to the selection menu and using select by attributes. And then exporting it out by going to the layer that I had selected the features from and using the data option and exporting my data. Alright,